Hey guys! 10 of the least known signs of ADHD. There are a lot of characteristics of ADHD that are not well known, that slip through the cracks that people don't notice. And of course, the presence of these doesn't definitively tell you this person has ADHD, but they can provide clues to help kind of spot what's going on and piece things together. More traffic accidents than typical. So because of some, distractibility, missing things, and juggling so many different thoughts in our brains all the time, we can miss things. And so it can be more common for someone with ADHD to have more little car accidents and those types of things. It seems like there's always a lot more than just driving on the mind. It's scary and it's not across the board, but that's something that could be a sign. Lateness. Often routinely late or habitually running late. This has to do with time blindness, not being able to recognize the time passing and how long things are going to take and estimating that, and even if we try to budget way more time than we need and get ready early, it's too early to leave yet. So you might sit down and start something, and then before we know it, we're late, forgetting to include the time that it takes to park and walk into the building for your appointment. Me having kids now, that complicates things even more. But I had this very rigid mindset of being late is rude and that's disrespectful to the person. So that sort of really helped force me to be on time. But it can be a common occurrence, and that can even result in issues with work, if you're consistently late. So impatience is another thing. I, for a long time, just characterized myself as just a very impatient person, and that was my kind of biggest flaw that I needed to work on. Asking someone to do something for you, and then I don't have the patience to wait for them to do it, so then I just do it anyway. Stuff like that. ADHDers can have a hard time just being out of control, I guess. And all of that kind of ties into trouble delegating as well. When we can't have someone do something for us, we have to, it's taking too long, I'm going to do it myself. That can cause some problems with delegating. And there are a lot of psychological barriers that get in the way of letting us be good at delegating, and some of those other leadership skills. Afraid of rejections, asking someone to do something and them saying no, some of that rejection sensitivity, thinking that you don't have time to delegate, that it'll just be faster if I just get it done now. I often get caught up in that. I take a longer path to get to the end result, but I feel like I'm going faster because I'm just diving in and not doing it the smartest, well thought out way. It feels gratifying to start the process, even if I could have done it faster if I waited till tomorrow and got the proper tools in place or whatever and then did it. Little cognitive flaw, I guess. And then also just not knowing how to delegate. It's a skill that ADHDers have to learn how to do. Some people naturally have that. And then struggling to verbalize things can be hard with ADHD, and being able to articulate what needs to be done. Being able to tell someone else can be hard. A lot of work for us. Time blindness can be a factor in that as well, I think. Not realizing how long things will take, and that there may be a necessity to delegate in those moments, but you don't think it's necessary. And then pretty soon you're up against the wall having to try to get all this stuff done, and it's too late at that point to delegate. Difficulty completing tasks is a common one. Part of it is, the attention and, getting bored and jumping into another project before we finish the first one. Definitely guilty of that, losing interest and just following the dopamine wherever it takes me. But being able to maintain focus and be persistent through the boring bits is not an ADHDer's strongest suit, and so that can kind of lead to incomplete tasks. Other people, it's a little bit easier for them to push through boring moments to get that delayed gratification and more dopamine rewards for it, whereas we don't get a dopamine hit in our brain from pushing through these boring things without a more immediate result. A zany sense of humor is one thing as well with ADHDers. It's common. It can be used as a coping mechanism, of course, to kind of deflect when you're uncomfortable with situations or yourself. And I think maybe it kind of ties into that. When you screw up, either you gotta laugh or else you're gonna cry about it, if that makes sense. So just kind of finding humor to get through hard things. Being able to laugh at yourself can be helpful when you're always screwing up. Social anxiety, definitely something I've experienced, but that can be common in ADHD. There can be a lot of fear surrounding social situations. Rejection sensitivity can play into that, and not knowing how people are going to react to you. I think a lot of that can develop through missed social cues, So even when we feel like we're paying attention in a conversation, with our inattentiveness, we might miss things. And so there's a disconnect a little bit with our peers. We can also be a little bit behind developmentally. So we may not relate to peers our age and might relate a little more to a younger crowd of people because we tend to be a little bit behind. That's just part of how the ADHD brain is. And we might have lagging social skills with that, and also some perceived criticism that we might take something as a negative towards us, even though they may not be, we're perceiving things and filling in the blanks in a way that might not be accurate, and that can hurt us. So next is intrusive thoughts. So unwanted, often pessimistic, negative thoughts popping up in our head and not being able to push those away. And just difficulty managing and keeping those under control. Those unwanted thoughts can be hard. There can be weird thoughts going on, and it might seem atypical because it is, because you have an atypical brain. So that can be a characteristic. Substance abuse and addictive behaviors. It seems like the ADHD mind is more prone to the addictiveness of things, more addiction prone. And so actually getting medication and getting help can help prevent that. So you're not out there self-medicating and trying to get help. You get, ADHD meds that will actually help you from developing an addiction, if that makes sense. And that's something that's very misunderstood. And I'm not a doctor, but that's my understanding. And then the coexisting disorders can develop, like eating disorder and different addictions. But I think we are more predisposed to addictions and that kinds of things, and other unsafe behaviors like unprotected sex. Those are kind of some things to look out for. And then tending to multitask. It's ironic because ADHDers are terrible at multitasking, even though we think we're good at it, because we do it all the time, and it feels good in our brain to multitask because we can get bored and we're looking for the perfect amount of stimulation. And it can also stem from maybe feeling like we're behind and we're not getting enough done, and so we gotta multitask to make more out of our time. Say hi, friends.
Hi,
Good boy. Say
hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good job.
And
Yeah? And we can assume we can get more done that way, right? But spoiler, that's not true. We don't get more done. We are so bad at shifting from like one mindset to another, a conversation and then back into work, that takes a while to shift gears, and so we're not very efficient that way. But it feels more gratifying to do that. We can tend to do stuff like play a podcast while we're doing the laundry and just cleaning and having music, and that's common with everybody. But ADHDers tend to do it a lot more and feel like, okay, I can get all this done. I'm gonna watch the show while I do my homework and also eat or whatever, and it just doesn't go well, and like we miss things. We can't do either task very well, so we're gonna have poor performance on our homework and then not get everything we're getting from the show or whatever. I have not figured out how to break that habit of multitasking, but I can definitely see how I do things better if I'm not multitasking and I put all my focus onto one thing. But that's very common with ADHD. So I hope you found this interesting and helpful. Make sure you click on this next video to see more of me and learn more about ADHD. I wish you the very best. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Bye.